What's up, dudes and dudettes? I'm up here early. It's 7:40. It's still early, and it's a Saturday morning, so I am up early. I'm up early doing stuff, and that's great. I like that. But yeah, I just wanted to make this video. I just had some thoughts to share real quick, and these thoughts came to me as I was watching a video this morning. There's a channel I love. I recommend the channel. I'd say it's not necessarily for the faint of heart, because it can be a little intense sometimes. But the channel's called Missionary Discussions, and basically it's this guy named Travis who's a Latter-day Saint, and he's really awesome. He's like one of my favorite dudes. He's like one of my favorite people to listen to and follow on YouTube. But he is an attorney, and he's very knowledgeable about the gospel and the restored gospel, and it's just awesome. Anyway, the missionaries put him whenever they have a troublesome whenever they have an investigator that is, they have some intense questions or something that the missionaries aren't necessarily set apart to take care of, they send the investigator over to Travis. And sometimes it's people looking for a fight. Sometimes it's people who want to have a theological, they're out to try to prove the church wrong or something like that. Sometimes it's like that. Other times it's a really good discussion, and every time it's great because Travis is always shedding light and knowledge, and he's one of these guys where you can be talking to him about something, and you might, let's say you're a Reformed Baptist, right? Which I believe the Reformed Baptists have a lot of there's a lot of things that they believe that they think are true that aren't true, and like predestination, for example, the whole God destining people for hell kind of thing. And so if you come to him and say you're a Reformed Baptist, and you're talking and you start talking about what you believe and a lot of times people go into what they know, and they start talking about what they know. Travis is really good at saying, hold the phone, let's go through this, and actually this is this, and this is this, and how could this be that if that's that? And they're usually, it's like a process, and it's a wonderful thing, because it's funny because he's so sharp, he doesn't take in any, false beliefs that are based on something that's not true. A belief in a lie, basically. And it's just awesome. Anyway, I love the channel. It's super awesome. It's entertaining. It's enjoyable. It's kind of like fine wine sometimes, and sometimes it stings quite a bit, because it's he doesn't take any nonsense, and he holds his own. And some people think he comes across as arrogant or rude or something like that, but he's not being arrogant or rude. He's just being very matter of fact. Anyway, I recommend the channel. It's called Missionary Discussions, and it has a picture of Joseph Smith as the like a portrait picture of Joseph Smith as the picture of the channel. But anyway, check it out. It's a good channel. But when I was watching that, I was just getting some thoughts here this morning. I did a lot of work kind of explaining that, and that's not necessarily the direction I wanted this video to go in. But I was just thinking about theology, and I just love I love the truth. I love the truth so much, and I love the fact that I found the church, the true church. I didn't even know there was a true church. I didn't even know that all the other churches were in apostasy. I didn't even know all these things, and I knew that there were some things that were just not quite right in certain churches, and I definitely knew that there were churches that God didn't necessarily want me in. But I didn't think it mattered ultimately. I mean, wasn't really going into the theology of things at the time. I tried going to the Catholic Church, but the Spirit was not leading me there. He was not saying you should continue going here. He was just basically saying, no, you don't have to keep going here, Justin. This isn't isn't really where you belong. You shouldn't really go here. You don't really have to go here, you know. So you can go here if you want, but you know, you don't really need to, kind of thing. That's what the Spirit was telling me about that. And so I gotten certain feelings from the Spirit about things, and He was slowly bringing my attention to truths that I did not yet understand, like about how the church, the original church of Jesus Christ, fell into apostasy, and all the other churches that exist nowadays are all apostatized versions of His original church. And I didn't realize that, and I didn't know that, of course, but and then of course I found the church, and so I found like the jugular vein of truth, you know what I mean? I found like the mother lode of truth. So I am so excited about that, and I definitely believe that it is true, but I also know that it's true because I've gotten a spiritual witness, and I've gotten everything I need to convince me that it's true, plus more and then some, like so much more than that. And anyway, what I'm trying to get at is I love the truth, and I love theology, and I love sharing it, and I love learning about it, and I love sharing the light of the gospel. Like, I love sharing it with people. And it's kind of hard to talk about, but here's my theory, or at least this is what I'm thinking, right? I'm thinking that the more I learn about it, the easier it will get to share. Because for my thing I struggle with the most is the knowledge part, because I don't know that much. I mean, I have a pretty decent, and I know a friend of mine who will tell me I know a lot, and I do know a lot for sure, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't, and I don't know as much. Well, it's not a bad thing. I just don't know as much as I would like to know. In other words, I would like to know more so that I can share more and be more comfortable in those explanations and not be worried and stuff like that. Anyway, I guess what I'm getting at is I love the gospel, and I love to share the gospel, and I love to talk to people about it. And it's a delicate, tender thing, right? Because I don't know if you've noticed, this is true in my case, but people are trying crazy this morning. I don't get it. They're like trying to run people over. It's like, I don't even care. I'm trying to get through you. I'm like, dude, this is insane. You guys are going too fast. You need to take a massive chill pill right off the coffee. But when something happens and you do end up meeting someone who's interested in the gospel or who is asking questions about it, I think it's a tender thing, because I take it as a huge opportunity. I take it as a huge responsibility. I look at it as, wow, okay, this person is asking about the gospel. I have this information, and they're asking about it. And they're asking about it with an open heart. And a lot of times, especially when they're asking with an open mind and things like that, it's like, all right, let's go. You know, so anyway, I feel the responsibility and the obligation to make sure that when that happens, that I don't treat it lightly, and that I make sure that I share what I know, and I try to do it as much justice as possible. And at the end of the day, like, there's some important things I need to keep remembering that I struggle to remember all the time, because it's just my natural inclination not to do this, but it's teach by the Spirit, which I think I kind of do. Sometimes I just get a little bit stuck trying to explain things, but teaching by the Spirit and letting the Spirit bear witness of things. In other words, just tell the truth, and let the Spirit testify. And but you know, now I think of it, I'm actually doing a great job when I'm doing that. I think I overthink things sometimes. Yeah, I overthink things. So, and that's fine. That's totally normal. But anyway, I just wanted to say that I love sharing the gospel with people, and I highly recommend it. If you're a Latter-day Saint, I guarantee that when you do this, and you know this, I'm sure you probably know this, but like when you share the gospel with other people, it's one of the most amazing things. It's one of the most rewarding things. And actually, Latter-day Saints, I think this is a message you need to hear, because it kind of gets lost sometimes. Because I think sometimes we think that, it's just maybe, I don't know, I don't want to say we think this because it's a little harsh, but maybe we think that, sometimes, I think we can slip into the belief sometimes thinking that, well, that's the missionary's job, and I think that we forget that we are called to be, representatives of Christ. We're called to be disciples of Christ. And what do disciples of Christ do? Do they just not share the gospel with people when asked? Or do they just not testify of Christ? Do they just say, oh, well, I'm a member of the church, but, if you want to learn anything, if you want to know anything more, you should talk to missionaries. It's actually not a bad strategy. Not a bad strategy at all, because look, the way I see it is if you can get them to talk to the missionaries, you're doing pretty good. But I also think that, when God has put this person in front of you, then it's probably, look, you're involved in the process. So don't be like, hey man, it's not my job, I'm out. Don't do that. Don't pull the it's not my job card. Don't pull that card. I mean, you can totally do it if you want, but come on, don't do it. That's what I say. Don't do it. Don't do that. Stay in there, right? Stay in there. See it through. Stay in there. And sometimes you can't stay in there. Sometimes it's like, nah, man, this person isn't even really genuine, or this person just wants to bash or something. But don't stay in there sometimes. You don't have to. But for the most part, when it comes down to it, stay in there, my friend. Oh, this truck is all bouncing up and down the road. This tractor and trailer is trying to start accelerating from a red light, and he's like all bouncing. His cab's all bouncing as the gears shift and stuff. Anyway. But yeah, I'm not really sure. I'm trying to say this thing I'm trying to say, and it's just that I love the gospel, and I love learning about it. I want to share it with other people. I love talking about it. I love spreading knowledge. I love sharing and spreading truth. And I just got like a chill from the Holy Spirit saying that. But yeah, I definitely do. And it's one of the most rewarding things in this world. It's honestly, I think that's what I really want to share here, is to say that, and if you guys don't know, my whole family is, none of my immediate family, none of the family that I know or have ever known, none of them are members of the church, except for the people on the other side of the veil, family on the other side of the veil who've accepted the church, accepted the baptisms. But the people I've known in my family are not members of the church, and so it's kind of a tough crowd at times, and you kind of like walking your walk alone, much like how Latter-day Saints are in the normal world, I think. But it's a little different when your immediate family around you is a Christian family, but they're just like, whoa, Latter-day Saints though, what? What? We don't play that. We don't play that game. But the cool thing is, I've been a member for 3 years. 3.5 years almost, and it's getting better. It's getting better, because the resistance is futile. No, the resistance is slowly going away, and they're slowly starting to see. And I had some really awesome. There was some really awesome things that happened yesterday. I read the Book of Mormon with my grandparents, which is amazing. They're not members, they're just, and we're in Helaman, like we're cutting through Helaman. We're almost the third Nephi, which is like, I am so excited about our reading, and we're getting it, and I'm understanding it more, and it's taken me some time, I'll be honest. I think it's mostly been like my reading comprehension has just not really been there, unfortunately, but it's gotten so much better, and like with going to school now, it's gotten better. But like, I'm reading the Book of Mormon now, and I'm totally understanding it. And like the first few times I read it, the first ton of times I read it, basically, because I've read it all the way through probably like 7 or 8 times, something like that. But maybe more, maybe less, probably a little bit more, maybe, I don't know. But there's been a lot of parts where I've struggled and not really have understood what I was reading, like I was reading this thing and it makes sense to me and I understand what I'm reading, but then at the same time I don't understand the context, I don't understand the big picture, what's going on. I lose track of the story as I read the story, kind of thing. But I am now getting to the point where I'm really starting to understand it and process it more, and I'm so thankful for that. I'm so thankful for that. But yeah, I was reading with my grandparents yesterday, and I am loving it. We usually take turns alternating. Like I'll pray this day, and she'll pray that day, that week. We'll alternate weeks of prayer. Who says the opening prayer? And I've taught them about praying to ask for the Spirit to be there, to help with our understanding of what we're reading, etc. And they're like, yes. And I just love it. Like, my grandparents are catching on, and they're definitely Christians. They've been Christians their whole life, and it's one of the main reasons. They are probably one of the biggest reasons why I am a Christian, which is awesome. But anyway, we were reading, and I was asking my mom, my grandmother, where we were at, because I use a different scripture. Sometimes I use my phone, sometimes I use my quad, and I just got a new set of scriptures, and just as I was about to say, I think we're in Helaman, she goes, we're in Helaman, and she said it with such confidence and like assuredness, and not just knowing where we were, but knowing the book, knowing how to pronounce it, and knowing for sure that's where we are. I was just like, yes, this is so awesome. I love this. This is so awesome. It was so, like, I don't know, you guys who don't have members, I don't know. Anyway, if you guys were born in the church, then obviously your family is familiar with the Book of Mormon to a certain extent, or is extremely familiar with the Book of Mormon, which is amazing. So it's not really a big deal when your family says something about the Book of Mormon, or a Book of Mormon, the title of a book in the Book of Mormon. But for those of you who don't have members in your family, and then they suddenly do, it is amazing. It is like hearing the most amazing thing in the world. Like, I did not grow up in the church. I did not grow up with family in the church, in the Restored Church. You know, the Restored Church. I mean, yes, in the apostatized churches, yes, absolutely. But I'm talking about the Restored Church. In the Restored Church, there's no comparison between the Restored Church and the apostatized churches, basically, because the Restored, like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. Like, I've been going to a Bible study at my dad's church, and he goes to a Baptist church, and I mentioned this before in my videos, but you know, it's nice, but as a Latter-day Saint, as someone who's been endowed and who knows the restored gospel, who has a testimony of the Book of Mormon, of Joseph Smith, of all those things, and who knows the truth about the restored gospel, knows that it's true. When I go to another church, and I don't go to other churches typically, but I just started going to this Bible study at this church because I just really was craving scripture study, you know. And anyway, and I also wanted to bring the Spirit with me, and I also wanted to see, I had all these, like, you know, I wasn't necessarily scheming. I guess I was kind of scheming in a way, but scheming for good. In other words, I went to this church because I was like, yeah, I've got the Spirit with me. Yeah, I'm gonna make such a difference here. Yes, I am. And I don't mean I'm going in there with the intention to like brainwash people or groom them or anything like that at all. No, not at all. But I did go into that church with the intention of bringing the light of the restored gospel into that church, and not by telling people about it, or not trying to like sway them away from their church or sway them away from their beliefs or anything like that. But if you ask me and something like that, I will talk to you about it, but in a respectful way. I respect the pastor and I respect the church there. So I'm not gonna be that wolf in sheep's clothing in their eyes. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna go in there, you know, and I'm gonna be respectful. I'm not gonna go in there with a bad agenda with their thoughts and feelings in mind. But I'll tell you one thing though, and it did work. It's working. It has worked. It does work. So anyway, but the Spirit is real, and the Spirit is with you, and the Spirit of the Spirit. And there is a difference. There is a massive difference, okay? There's a massive difference in the Spirit that you carry as a member of the church with the knowledge of the restoration. There's a massive difference in that Spirit than in the Spirit that is in people in other churches. And it's beautiful. The Spirit they carry is beautiful. It's amazing, and it's humble, and it varies. It all varies. I love this lighting. This is, I like it. It's like it's. I just love the background here I'm seeing. It's beautiful. This is beautiful. This is. I'm liking this coloration of the background and everything. I'm liking it. But the Spirit definitely varies person to person, church to church. But there are amazing things. There were amazing things I gleaned out of going to this church from the people, the members, and the way that they revere God, the way that they, the faith and the humility and the diligence and the faith. The faith is like so. I don't want to say they have more faith than us, but I do want to say that they have way less than us. We have way more than them, and they still have a massive faith. And I think that speaks volumes because they don't have the restored gospel. They don't have all the scriptures. They don't even know about like 40% of the truth. They don't even know about all of that. They don't even know about such a huge amount. But they have a massive reverence for God. They have faith. They have faith in God. They have humility, trust, and belief. And I just love it. I just love it. But anyway, I have loved being there. And I will tell you, I will be honest with you guys here. It's not all rainbows for sure. It's funny how my videos always come out to be about a half an hour. I noticed that I like to cut it off around a half an hour because I feel like I don't want it to be too long. I don't want it to be unwatchable. And maybe it's just like a really long episode of a normal show you like, like a half an hour solid no commercial show. But it's not all hopscotch and rainbows at these churches, I'll be honest, because why? Because they don't have the fullness of the gospel. And because they don't have the fullness of the gospel, they don't have the whole truth. And because they don't have the whole truth, they just don't know about certain things. And because they just don't know about certain things, a lot of other things can try to find their way in. A lot of false teachings, false doctrines, false truths find their way, or they try to find their way in. And the people just don't know any better. They all vary amongst each other, and as long as they can find a scripture verse that agrees with what they're saying, then that's good enough. But we know as members of the church that there is so much more to the truth than that. And so it is uncomfortable. I've been uncomfortable there before. I've been very uncomfortable because I don't feel the Spirit the way I feel it in my church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the church, in the restored church. And if you go to this church, you will notice the difference. A lot of these churches use emotional appeal. I'm not trying to attack these churches, but a lot of churches use this emotional appeal, the emotional worship music, the emotional tones, or the warning, the fire and brimstone sermons, or the guilt trip of doctrine. Like, well, if you don't believe this is the word of God right here. Going to hell. A lot of them do that kind of strategy, things like that. It's a little, it's cringe. It's massive cringe, it's massive discomfort. But be a light in a darkened place. Not to call those churches darkened places, but let me just say, they, of course, like I've said, they don't have the fullness of the gospel. It's nothing against them. It's not their fault. They just don't have it, and so that's why it's like that. But anyway, I have experienced from being there. I've experienced such wonderful things, such joyful, enjoyable, amazing things since being there. Which has been that I've seen the difference that me being there makes. I've seen the influence of the Spirit that I carry, or that is with me, the Spirit of the restored gospel. I see the influence of that Spirit on the people and on the church, and I freaking love it. It's my favorite thing in the world. And so I just have to be careful because it's not something I can do all the time. It's not something I can go to all the time. I need to be careful about it taking me away from my church too much, because I don't want to get caught up in another world like that, and that's how stuff happens. You should be where you're supposed to be. You should be where you're called to be. But I have seen, like the Bible study I go to, the pastor stands in front of the church, in front of the congregation, and let's say we're in Genesis 37, and he starts talking about what we've been reading about, and he starts talking about it, and then you get asked for a volunteer to read these verses, and I can volunteer, and when I volunteer and I read those verses, the Spirit is felt through what I read in a different way than if someone else read it, which is really interesting. And I'm not trying to say I'm like so much better than these other people. I'm not trying to say that at all. I'm not so much better than these other people. It's just that I have the knowledge of the restored gospel, and that is a huge blessing. It's a huge blessing. So, but the part that I love, my favorite part, is like, it's nice because there's this Bible study going on, and I've seen what it's like when I'm not there, because they post it live on Facebook, and I watched them on Facebook Live when I was door dashing before I started coming, and I would just be watching that, and so I've seen what it's like when I wasn't there. But then when I'm there, and he asks a question, like the congregation is collectively, the average age of the congregation is probably 70. The average age is probably 70 something. It's a very older congregation, people. And so when they're asked a question, usually there is quite a delay. And so there's a delay because of the age, but there's also a delay because of not having the fullness of the gospel and the Spirit not running, the Spirit not being as active as it is in the Latter-day Saint church. And let me tell you, in any Latter-day Saint church, let's just take in Sunday school, for example, because that's a similar setting. In Sunday school, for example, if everyone is not willing to participate, or in an elders quorum, or a Relief Society, I've never been in a Relief Society, but just saying, if there's a discussion going on and no one is really wanting to talk about things, no one's really wanting to say anything, it will stay that way. You know what I mean? Like there's I guess what I'm trying to say is there's an atmosphere that can be created from participation, from a willingness to open your mind and speak the truth that you know, regardless of feeling like it, regardless of how it's going to sound, regardless of the atmosphere around you. And I learned that, and when I first was a member earlier in the church, like 2 years ago, I want to say, it was my first year basically, when I was in elders quorum, I noticed, and this was around COVID time, so it was still around tense times. I'm running out of time here, but it was still intense times. There's a lot of tension, of course, because of the COVID times and everything like that. But in elders quorum specifically, it was very quiet, slow going. And our leader at the time was, he was kind of a slow speaker, and, but anyway, what I'm saying is the movement of the conversation and the discussion was very, very slow. And everyone was very reserved, and everyone was very timid, and no one was really, really willing to say much of anything. And you know what happens when someone in that situation sees it and recognizes it, like I did, and they say, you know what, I see this, and I see this tension, and I feel this, I feel the same thing everyone else is feeling, but you know what, I'm going to say something anyway, because it could be because I don't like this tension, I don't want this tension to be prevailing here, I don't like this tension, let's kill this tension, right, kill the tension, let's speak through it, and let's break up the ice, break the ice, come on, it's no use of having an ice around, break the ice. And they say, you know what, I'm going to say something, and I'm going to share what I think, and it's just going to be what I think, and I'm just going to share it, and I'm just going to completely share it. I'm going to share it, I'm just going to share it. And then they go ahead and say what's on their mind and share it, and you break some ice. It makes it easier for everyone else to do the same thing. Someone has to start, right? And unless someone starts, it's not going to change. And so it's the same thing, think about it this way, it's the same way as the restoration. If Joseph Smith had never gone to the woods and prayed and asked God what the real true church was, which church was true, we would be so much further behind. We would be waiting for that to happen still. So are you glad that you live in the day of the restoration of the church? Or do you wish you lived before it, where we still long for it and didn't have it and didn't know how to get it? Now we are so blessed, and we have the opportunity to make such a difference in this world. and speaking the truth, sharing the truth, and do it gently. Do it gently, and be sensitive, be careful to people. Because you don't want to. Obviously, you don't want to blast them. You don't want to scare them away. But I guess what I'm trying to say is just don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of telling the truth. Don't be afraid of sharing the truth. I was a little bit nervous about this, but I'm feeling a lot better now. I feel a much more courageous spirit right now than I did before. But I have one of my assignments in school right now is to make a short video presentation, and it's called All About Me. And I really could have done a better job with it based off the title, but I went just by the requirements that she gave for the project. You had to make a PowerPoint, or you could have even made a YouTube video, which, what do you think I did? I did a YouTube video, and just kind of saying who I am, where I'm from, my career goals, and my college goals, etc., and my hobbies or interests, and that's that. Well, in my video that I made, I was wearing a Washington Capitals shirt, and I was like, "Come back at me! I love the Capitals. I love Ovechkin. He's the best player in the world. He's the best player on the Capitals, best goal scorer of all time." And then I said it. But the most important thing about me, or the thing that is most important to me, or is, I guess, most indicative of who I am or who I want to be, is the fact that I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I recorded the video in my room next to my bookshelf with all my church books on it. And I showed everyone my church books, and I said, I'm not trying to brag. I'm not bragging. I'm just telling you guys. I'm just telling you guys what I did. But I said, the church is like one of my favorite things, and I love to read, and I love books, and so I'm always trying to find church books, like, cheap church books at a Goodwill store or something like that. But, and I just shared that with them a little bit. And so it's like, you can do that. It's just like they say, you've probably heard this in church, they probably showed you a video or something about this, or someone's probably said something about this. Maybe, probably, about how when people ask you how your weekend was, and you tell them it was great, and then they say, well, what did you get into, or what did you get into this weekend? You can tell them, or they don't have to say that, you just ask how your weekend is, and you can tell them, it was great, I went to church, it was really great to be in church after the long week. I really by the time Sunday comes around, I'm really looking forward to church, because I feel so much peace in church on Sunday, and that peace usually sticks with me, through the week. And by the time Saturday rolls around, I'm excited to get back to church, and I love my church. You can share these kinds of things with people. There's no shame in doing that. It doesn't mean you're bragging. It doesn't mean that you're trying to convert someone. It just means that you're sharing what's important to you, and you can do that. And that's it makes a big difference. Nowadays, a lot of people are interested in spirituality. A lot of people really want to know more, and they're seeking, and they're asking, and they're looking. So give them those precious golden breadcrumbs. Give them the golden breadcrumbs. Lead them to the church, right? So anyway, that's it for my video, you guys. I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope it was a good experience. I think it was an enjoyable video. I feel good about it. I feel productive. It's not all about being productive, but it's like I feel it was a productive video for sure. Anyway, I love you guys. Thank you guys for watching.